Welcome back, listeners, to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Sana, and this is the podcast where we explore the intricate dance between mental well being, personal growth, and a life of meaning. Now, today's conversation, listeners, it dives into a compelling and often overlooked truth. Your finances and your health are more deeply connected than we realize. And joining me is my guest, Arunjay Katakam. So, he is a former investment banker turned global changemaker. He's the author of Generation Hope: How Inclusive Economics Can Help Us All Thrive. He's a speaker, he's a serial entrepreneur, and founder of the Inclusive Action Lab. Once a well chaser, listeners, Arunjay now focuses on healing systems from the inside out, bridging the gap between financial inclusion and human well being. And this episode will challenge what you think success looks like and invite you to rethink the role of money in your life and health. So, with that, Arunjay, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really happy to have you here with us.
Thanks a lot, Sana. It's a pleasure to be here. So thanks for having me.
That's wonderful. Um, okay, Arunjay, let's talk about your book first. It's Generation Hope. So you write in your book about shifting from chasing wealth to chasing meaning. That's what is the topic of our conversation today. So, from your own experience, how this mindset shift impacts our physical and mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So just one thing here is it's not really it is a shift from chasing wealth, but not to
Okay.
chasing anything. So I mean, if you find meaning and purpose, that's kind of great. But if we just change from chasing one thing and another thing, we'll be as miserable, because we had yet to have attained that. And so the core part of it is really from the scarcity mindset, where we don't have enough or we're lacking this or that or the other, to a one of abundance. And an abundant mindset really helps in so many ways. And for me, it was a huge liberation, because from the age of 11, I wanted to be super rich. I wanted to make millions. And
Oh,
I carried that for 30 years in different ways, even though I left investment banking because it really wasn't for me. And I really wanted to help people less fortunate. And I was working in financial inclusion. I still wanted to make millions. And it was when COVID happened, and in the like May of 2020, I realized actually I'm part of the problem. And
mhm.
so I went on a journey, and I started writing Generation Hope in September of that year. And the journey I went on was really questioning how is it, what is our economic system, how does it all interact, and what is the part we play in it, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, and so that's the kind of the overarching theme of the book. And we can thrive, and everyone can thrive if we all shift towards more of this community, and like not just me, myself, like how do I get super rich? And because like the reality is everybody can't get super rich, and also the people who are super rich are still as miserable as ever. It's not like that solves the problem. So yeah, so that's kind of what I realized, and I'd say it's been hugely liberating not having to, kind of have that strong, deep aspiration of making a lot of money and chasing wealth.
Mm, that definitely makes sense. And thank you for that clarification, because yeah, and you're absolutely right. If we are just switching from chasing money to chasing something else, then it means the same thing. We are not improving at all. because it's kind of, we are once again getting down into that rabbit hole. So yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
And Arunjay, many of our listeners, they are high performers who unfortunately quietly suffer burnout. And your journey, it offers a mirror to them. And how how have you concluded that health improves when financial priorities evolve? Like, are there any specific moments that you realized, especially during COVID or maybe after COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I want to say I have experienced burnout. It was in November 2022. And I write about it in the book actually, in the kind of this the synopsis of which is that, after kind of middle of 22, travel came back, it started opening up. And we through the pandemic we changed our lives and we filled it with other things. And then I started traveling again and it just all just became, and it was also 2 years of the pandemic. And, at the end of November, I realized I was kind of completely burnt out.
Mm.
And it, the, it took me, several months to recover from it. And, it was like, I just had no energy for months, like the burnout. I think, if you don't experience it, it's very hard to understand it. And now at least more people are, even if they haven't understood it, are willing to accept it. It's like, it's not like suddenly people don't want to work, or they, like, it's just when you get burnt out, you have no energy. Like, you wake up in the morning, normally you are full of energy, ready to go, especially a high performer. And at least I would think I was in like one of those. And but I had nothing. The tank was empty after sleeping all night. And you just, every small action, it was like a very tedious thing in my head. That is the point I had gotten to. And this was actually after I wrote the book. Most of it, I obviously, as I said, I include the story in there.
Mhm.
So that made me realize a lot of things, because by then I was already not chasing wealth. Um, but I was still doing things on partly autopilot, partly, ambition, and like you said, high performance, and like, okay, all of this. And so for me, that was another kind of shift to realizing that, the now I think even time is abundant, which is, you can say that it is goes against physics and science. There's only 24 hours in a day. And all of this. But I'll tell you why I think it is, because we don't know how much time we have. you know Today might be our last, tomorrow 1 month, 1 year, or we might have 20 years or whatever, right? So since we don't know, it is literally abundant till it's not, till our time is gone, right? So
Yeah.
it's a kind of a shift for me that I think really helped, because otherwise you're trying to maximize. And again, like we discussed, same thing, right? Like you hamster wheel, rabbit hole. So now I try to do, like, I follow the concept of Cal Newport's slow productivity. I try to do less things but more important things. And so that's one thing I wanted to say connected to burnout. But I think I see financial pressure, and often, for some people, the pressure is absolutely real. How do you make ends meet? And so that's little bit difficult. But for most people, the pressure is self-created. So I want to focus on that, because what is that? Keeping up with the Joneses, overextending, all of these kind of things, where you set up a certain lifestyle where then you have to jump through so many hoops to maintain it. That is one thing we do to ourselves. I've been there. So, that's a kind of adds to all the stress. And then two is, even if we are even, there are many people who are financially comfortable, but they're not happy. They want more. Again, been there. And
Mm.
so what happens is that in that scenario of you just put so much pressure on yourself that you're just unhappy because of it. And there was a study done, which again is in the details in the book, but it basically said that they asked 2,000 people, how much would you be happy with? And they all said 2 to 3 times. So if someone had $100,000, they wanted 200 to 300. They would be
Mhm.
that would be enough. If somebody had 1 million, they said like 2 to 3 million would be enough. And if somebody had 10 million, they were like 20 to 30 million would be enough. So you see, there's no end to how much because when you get to whichever level, then they say if you're worth 5 million, you're a poor millionaire. Like so, it's a bottomless bucket basically.
I think the question itself is it's like how much you'll be happy with. There's definitely, because it cannot be, the happiness cannot be defined in, an objective way for everyone. I mean, you're absolutely right. One will say that no, I'll be happy if I earn 2 to 3 times of what I'm earning currently. Somebody else will say, no, I want to be a billionaire. A millionaire will say, I want to be a billionaire. Um, I think the question itself is a bit misleading. And secondly, thank you so much, Arunjay, for sharing that because burnout, yes, somebody who wouldn't have experienced it, uh, I mean, I'm really, really, I feel thankful that people are now taking it seriously. They are discussing about burnout, especially in the corporate circles, professional discussions, because it not only affects your work, your performance, but it affects your health. It affects your relationship, relationships. It affects your personal life. You are absolutely right. Even waking up in the morning, doing even a single small task, the things that you enjoyed, you will find them really hard to do. So it can be really, really, it, it, it's a horrible experience.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I hope not to experience it again. It's a fine balance I find nowadays because, you still want to do certain things in life. And so but I have now realized there's certain kind of indicators. And, I use that to manage, to make sure I, don't cross that threshold, like, so sometimes you have deadlines, you have things, and but then you have to just be cognizant to not just completely go for broke and go overboard, and so that's yeah what I learned from that experience.
Hmm. Yeah, that is really, really empowering that you are sharing it and people are talking about it. And Arunjay, you talk about inclusive economics. I would love to understand what exactly it is. You have come from an investment banking background. It's an incredible, ambitious yet super stressful job. So, I mean, if you can share or maybe define it for all of us.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of the inclusive economics, I'm going to talk about it in a kind of a simple way.
Mhm.
There's a whole chapter dedicated to it in the book. So for those who really want to dig into the details, I'd point them there. But I'll just give a few examples. So fundamentally, if we have a system where each of us is trying to extract the maximum, then really we're not being inclusive because we are taking there is a power imbalance, that we can just extract and take more, even than our fair share. So
Mhm.
inclusive economics is really when we uh, include others and have that ability to actually make a positive difference. So in the UK, for example, there's a minimum wage, and there's also something called the living wage, and it's about a 20% difference. And there are a number of businesses that pay the living wage rather than the minimum wage. And that's an example of being inclusive, so that you are, and those, it's not charity, those businesses actually do really well because the employees are happier. They're, they have gratitude that they're getting this more money. They're not, and 20% makes a big difference. It's the difference between, really struggling and having a slightly better life. So that's kind of one example. And then more broadly, you see these in cooperatives. Now in the B Corp movement is also, kind of gaining a lot of momentum. So instead of just pure profit, it is like people, planet, profit. So this triple bottom line is all kind of examples of being inclusive with economics, in that you're not just caring about just pure profit and getting maximizing your return in what you get, but you're caring about other people. And so I think, yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I would say it is. One of the other things is to add here this myth of self-made. There's you know there's literally nobody who's self-made. Everything is based on community and other people who help people. So even, if you take somebody like, you know the billionaires like Bill Gates or this or any one of them, they never made it alone. They always had people around them who helped them. And this narrative that, being self-made, it's is actually false, because no one can do it in isolation. You put somebody completely separate to and not get any help from anyone, then it's impossible. So I think those two things are really related, because when you realize that actually it's not just you, then you can think about including everybody who helped you on that journey as well. Like, so there are many ways of looking at it.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good point, Arunjay. Really good point. And talking about uh, this, let's also look at your early um, phase. You started meditating at the age of 13. Our listeners would love to know, like, how you um, familiarize yourself at such an early age with meditation, and how has that early spiritual grounding influenced uh, on you, how you now approach financial models and also inclusive economics?
Yeah, so Sana, it's been a really fascinating journey. You can connect the dots looking back. It's a famous quote by Steve Jobs. You can't plan all this. So at the age of 30, I discovered I was dyslexic. And that explained a lot of things in my life, because I had a very checkered education where I didn't do very well at all. And the teachers used to tell my parents that, I'm just not studying, I'm not interested, all of these kind of things. Every report card was red and not, very good. And so when I was 13, I was really struggling. My mother had learned meditation. She was meditating, and she kind of said, "Why don't you come and try this out?" Like, and at that point, I felt I had nothing to lose. Like, so uh, I went and did it, and actually, I found it was, kind of calming and helpful. And then I did it, with her encouragement over the years, and that has played such a vital role um, in my increasing my own awareness. So, you know, the thing is that if I had not meditated, I think for me, I might still be in the investment banking world. Like, I might have not had the ability to kind of realize. or think about what I was doing and what I want to do and what I want to achieve, other than just wanting to be super rich. So that I think has helped a lot. And then I think overall, just being more aware, more in tune with your mind and body is a really positive thing. So I think, regardless of the type of meditation, whether it is just 5 minutes a day or longer, I think it's of great value for anyone.
No, that is really lovely, Arunjan. Th- I think that's exactly, how we can say that people who are successful or who are earning, it's not about self made. You have either they are your parents or your family members or friends or your networking or your community. um you need their help, and especially in fact for high performers also who are suffering through burnout, it's very very natural that they don't want to share that with anyone, because they'll assume that that kind of um, uh, tones down their image or portrays them as weaker, or especially in the workplaces, because once you stop performing, people will have an idea in their minds that okay, maybe they are not performing enough or well, so they are of no use. So that is really really important that you um, uh, always you are there to ask for help, because especially this is so obvious with high performers. And I would love to know from you, Anja, what would you say on this?
Yeah, absolutely, Sana. It's been a huge taboo kind of topic, and um, that's been shifting over the last few years. There's a lot of discussion around mental health. These issues are not visible, like physically, so it's very hard to know what somebody is going through, and at least that now it's that shift is allowing for more dialogue. But it's something we need to still do a lot more on, in encouraging people to have and creating those environments in which they can have those discussions, because in many cases in the past, when people can't talk about this and they get depressed and they get so, you know they they often even take their lives. Like, it can go to that level of extreme, and those things must must really be avoided. um, and even those who are not going to that end need support and help, like, so we need to help. And and the important thing to realize, it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter who you are and how successful you are or whatever. For someone to think that is a weakness, that in itself is actually wrong. Because the thing is that burnout or any of these things, they come and go. It's not a permanent state. And and literally it can come to anybody at any time, depending on their situation and circumstances. And people should not be judged based on this thing. So if you get a common cold, for example, you're not judged as being unhealthy and unfit and this and that. Like, you're not well, you take time off, you recover, and you come back to work. And it should be very similar. And it should feel safe to be able to share this.
Totally, totally. Great, great. So, Arunjay, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and also get a hold of your book, Generation Hope, and your work at Inclusive Action Lab, what will be the best way?
Yeah, so my website, arunjay.com, arunjay.com. Um, it's got basically links to everything, the book, and other resources. The book is also available on Amazon, and So yeah, and then I'm also active on LinkedIn. So if people want to reach out either through my website or LinkedIn, either yeah, happy to uh, e- you know engage with people.
Wonderful. We'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And Arunjay, this was such a thought provoking, a very, very lovely conversation. And I should thank you for reminding us that true health, whether it's mental, physical, collective, they can't exist in isolation from economic justice. So thank you so, so much. This was really, really lovely conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Sana. It's been a pleasure. And I have to say, it's also a reminder for me, it's not like I'm kind of outside of this environment. So it's really nice to have the conversation and also remind myself because, you get back to like all of the other things one does in a day. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ranjay, for kind words. And to all the listeners, if you are feeling called to rethink your relationship with money, power, and purpose, I encourage you to check out Arunjay's book, Generation Hope, and learn more about his work and connect with him. Refer to the show notes along with this episode. And I would just like to say that money isn't just a number, it is also an energy. And how we distribute that energy matters. Until next time, keep your mind clear, keep your heart open, and remember real wealth starts from within. This is Sana, and this has been Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Thank you.